Good morning everybody and welcome to today's English lesson. Today our learning objective is to retrieve information and understand vocabulary from a poem. And today we're going to be looking at the poem called The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. So if your work pack has already been delivered, inside you'll find a plastic wallet full of different reading texts. I want you to pause the video and go and find the one which is the Jabberwocky poem. If you haven't had your pack delivered yet, you can make notes on a piece of paper instead. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and I want you to read the poem to yourself first. You can either do this in your head or out loud. You'll probably notice that there are lots of tricky new words. Do your best to pronounce them using the phonics knowledge you have and your understanding of how to pronounce similar words. Once you've finished, unpause the video. So now I'm going to read the poem to you. Listen to my expression as I'm reading. Are there parts where I slow down or speed up? As I say the unfamiliar words, do they remind you of any vocabulary you already know? Okay. The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jub bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand. Long time the maxome foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And, as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. So, a very strange poem, but a very interesting one too. Now, even though there are lots of words that we don't know the meaning of, you should be able to get a good idea of what the poem is about. So what I want you to do is I want you to match the verse to the summary on the right-hand side. So we've got, the monster comes loudly out of the forest. Advice is given to the warrior about how terrible these creatures are. The warrior defeats the monster and cuts off its head. And the warrior waits by a tree and thinks. So just pause the video. You don't need to write it down. Just pause the video and think. Which verse do each of those match up best to? Okay, so let's have a look at the first verse. So the first verse is all about these weird creatures. So let's have a look. Oh yes. Advice is given to the warrior about how terrible these creatures are. I think that's probably going to be the right one. The next one. So he's holding his sword and he's resting by the tum-tum tree and thinking. So which one will that be? The warrior waits by a tree and thinks. The next one. So the Jabberwocky comes through the tulgey wood. Let's see. The monster loudly comes out of the forest. And finally, that must mean that the warrior defeats the monster and cuts off his head. Hopefully you found all those too. So what we'll do now is we'll go through each verse in a little bit more detail and start to pull apart that vocabulary and what each verse is about. So, when he was writing this poem, he chose lots of made-up words on purpose. Can you think of a reason why he might have done that? I think it was probably, or possibly, to make us use our imagination to decide what kind of strange world this poem occurred in. So let's first of all have a look at some of the words that we probably don't know the meanings of. As we're going along, if you want to highlight and make notes on your poem, then that's absolutely fine. So, first of all, let's start off with the Jabberwock, the Jub bird, and the bandersnatch. Now, I've never heard of these before, but using the context of the verse, if the Jabberwock has jaws and claws, and the Jub is a bird, I can have a good guess that all of these are probably some kind of creatures, some kind of monster, some kind of animal, something like that. Okay, so the poem is saying, beware the Jabberwock, so be careful of, watch out for the Jabberwock. the jaws that bite, the claws that catch, so maybe he'll pick you up in his claws. Beware the jub bird, and shun. Ooh, shun. Now, shun is a bit of a tricky word. I'm going to highlight that one. And shun actually means to avoid or to stay away from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a little note at the side so that I remember that the word shun means stay away from. Okay, and if you'd like to do that on your notes, you can do that at any point as we're going through. Now then, the last word is really very strange. The frumious bundersnatch. So, frumious is actually even stranger a word than the others because it's actually a portmanteau. And a portmanteau is a word blending the sounds and combining the meaning of two others. So you might have heard of the word brunch. And brunch is a mixture of breakfast and lunch. And it's kind of eaten in between them. It's not breakfast and it's not lunch. It's a combination of both. So you might have some toast to start with from breakfast, and then you might have something a bit more lunchy as well, like maybe you might have, I don't know, some hash browns, some baked beans, some sausage sandwich, something like that. And we would combine both of those words together to make the word brunch. Okay, it's like a mixture of both of them. So this portmanteau for frumious is a mixture of the word furious and fuming. And you can see how those two spellings have been brought together in that one word, frumious. Okay, so if you're thinking, if it means both furious and fuming, I'm thinking that this bandersnatch is very, very cross indeed, because both of those words mean angry. So that's helping me to decide it's not just angry, it's a mixture of furious and fuming, so it must be really very cross. So let's look at the next verse. Do you have any ideas? Which might be the portmanteau in this verse? See if you can have a look and spot a word that might be a portmanteau here. So a mixture of two words kind of smushed together. Right, let's have a look then. So, he took his vorpal sword in hand. So he held up his vorpal sword. He was holding it in his hand. And the word vorpal, now at first I wondered if maybe vorpal was the portmanteau. Actually, Lewis Carroll just made it up. He just decided he wanted a cool new word. You might have heard of a vorpal sword because since then, lots of games have added it to one of their armories. So you can actually, in lots of games, make or find a vorpal sword. But Lewis Carroll was the first person to come up with this word. We don't know what it means. He never told us. Perhaps deadly, sharp, it was a special metal, magical. Perhaps you can think of another word that would describe that sword, another adjective that could go in front of the word sword instead of vorpal. Long time the manxome foe he sought. I wonder if you spotted this word manxome as our portmanteau. So this word is a mixture of the word monstrous and the word fearsome. So if we have a look there at our the first half, monstrous. Oh, my computer's just being a little bit slow again. Wait for it to catch up with us. Apologies for the delay. I'll just leave it to work itself out. So if you look at the first three letters here of a monstrous, you can see they're the same as mon here. And the last few letters of fearsome, that at the end, is also at the end of manxome. Okay, so monstrous and fearsome, again, that's helping to build a picture of what this creature is. So, long time the manxome foe he sought. Foe is another word that I might want to highlight. I can't highlight it at the minute because my notebook has decided it wants to stop working, but you can highlight it on your sheet. So if it's something that's monstrous or fearsome, do you think that's going to be a friendly thing? Or, oh, look, here we go. It's just woken itself up. Let's get rid of that. There we go. So if I highlight the word foe here, then we're thinking, is it going to be a friendly thing? Is it going to be an enemy? I think it's going to be an enemy, isn't it? If he sought the foe, sought is the past tense of seek. So I might actually want to highlight that. Okay, so it means to seek, to look for, to find. So I'm going to put there that it's the past tense of seek. Look for or find. So he's resting by the tum-tum tree. Again, tum-tum was a made-up word that Lewis Carroll used to describe some tree that he had imagined. And he stood a while in thought. So if he's standing for a while, it's probably been there for quite some time. Let's look at the next one. And, as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood and burbled as it came. Now you can see here another portmanteau that has been created. This one has actually been created out of not one, not two, but 3 different words. So we've got gruffish. So if you're gruff, then you've usually got quite a low, deep voice. Okay, roughish, so he's not thinking particularly nice thoughts. They're a bit rough and ready. And huffish. I imagine that if you're in a bit of a huff, you're a bit annoyed. So he's standing there, he's a bit annoyed, he's maybe not thinking the nicest thoughts. So that's what Lewis Carroll imagined by the word uffish. So as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood and burbled as it came. So if it's coming whiffling through the wood, that just means that he's not running at a constant speed. He's going a little bit slower, a little bit faster sometimes. It's a very old-fashioned word. I don't think we would really use it nowadays, meaning that his speed keeps on changing. Again, tulgey, it's not really clear, but I think using the context, it probably means thick, dark, dense, something like that. So if I do like a little arrow here, then I might want to write a little note saying that it's thick and dense, perhaps. And burbled as it came. So if you're burbling, that means that you're kind of talking really quickly without making any sense. So making lots of loud sounds, but you can't really understand what this creature is saying. And the final verse that we are looking at. So, 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with his head he went galumphing back. So, this time, I'm going to tell you what the portmanteau is. I'm going to tell you that the portmanteau is galumphing. Can you think of any words that might have been put together to make the word galumphing? Think about it. He's just defeated this evil, terrible creature. Okay, he's picked up the head and he's gone galumphing back. Any ideas? Let's see what it was. It was the words galloping and triumphantly. So he's galloping back, either that he's running in like a really bouncy way, or he's on his horse and he's triumphant. He's really pleased that he's won. He's really kind of excited and he's like, yeah, I did it. So, any more words in there? We know that the vorpal blade is this special sword, and it went snicker-snack. So maybe that's the sound that it made as it was going through. Maybe it sounds a little bit like an old name for a knife, but it's a little bit unclear. So, have a look at that first line. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through and through. How do the words that Lewis Carroll has chosen affect our understanding of how easy it was for the hero to defeat the monster? When he's chosen to write 1, 2, 1, 2, I'm kind of forced to say that very quickly. So that makes me think, that puts into my mind that he's probably doing really quick stabs. They're not really long, slow, lazy cuts. They're stabbing, bang, 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 bang. And through, so if every time his sword is going through the monster, that makes me think that it's probably quite easy. He's not having lots of blocks that he's having to try and get through. Every time he's getting through the monster nice and quickly. So that puts into my mind, it helps me to imagine that this was actually a pretty easy battle for the warrior. It was pretty quick. He managed, his sword was much better than whatever the monster had, and it was quite an easy victory. So what we're going to do first is we're going to have a little warm-up before you do your work on Class Dojo. So we're going to have a look at a couple of retrieval questions, and a vocabulary question, because these are the two types of questions that you'll be answering on your worksheet. So the first one is, where did the Jabberwock come from? So first of all, I'm going to read the question and I'm going to highlight any key words that I need to think about. I'm going to highlight the word where, because that tells me that the answer will need to be a place. I'm also going to highlight the word Jabberwock because I know I'm not interested in where the warrior came from. I only want to know where the Jabberwock came from. And then I'll go back to my poem and I'll think, okay, I know the Jabberwock doesn't appear in the first 2 verses, so I'm going to go down to the 3rd verse straight away. I'm going to read it and I'm watching out for a place as I go. As in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood. Aha! He was running through the tulgey wood. So where did he come from? He came from the tulgey wood. Now when I write my answer in, I don't need to write the whole verse. I don't even need to write the whole line. I just need to write down the part that answers the question. Now, this is where your highlighter is really important in a poem like this, because the words and the spellings are a bit strange. So you need to make sure that you copy down the spellings exactly if you're retrieving a word from the text. So then I'm going to write down using my keyboard the answer. Some people in their work yesterday tried to write the answer using the pen on the screen, and it was a big mess and really hard to read. I will show you how to do this on the next slide. So I'm going to type in my answer, the tulgey wood. I don't need to do it as a full sentence. I'm just answering the question. Where did the Jabberwock come from? The tulgey wood. Oh, well, that's got a capital letter there. Okay, now let's have a look at a vocabulary question. Look at verse 1. Find and copy a word which means avoid. So again, I'm going to highlight anything in the question that's going to help me to answer it. I'm definitely going to highlight that I'm looking at verse 1 because then I know exactly where to start. Find and copy a word. How many words is a word? How many words will I copy? I'll copy 1 word. So I'm going to highlight that too to remind me I only want 1 word. It's not a word I'm making up myself. It's a word from the poem. And I want the word which means avoid. So just remind yourself, what is our strategy for vocabulary questions? I'm going to switch in the word avoid for any other words that might be it. So, for example, if I'm not sure if it's the word catch, I'll swap it in, see if it might make sense. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that avoid. Does it make sense? The claws that avoid? I don't think it is, so it's unlikely to be that word. Let's try the word frumious. Frumious is a tricky word. I might not know what it means. Beware the jub bird and shun, that avoid bandersnatch. Does that make sense? I don't think it does. Let's try the word shun. Beware the jub bird and avoid the frumious bandersnatch. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. So again, I'm going to highlight the word shun so I can make sure that I copy it properly into my answers. Because I only find and copy one word, if you write more than one word, you will not get it right. Sorry, that's the wrong word. I just wrote avoid. I'm going to write the word shun, which is the word that I have copied from the poem. So, now what you'll need to do is you'll need to complete the worksheet on Class Dojo and submit it before 1 o'clock. If you are doing your work on a laptop or a computer, I've already put a video up on the class story yesterday showing you how to use all the features of the worksheets on Class Dojo. But if you're on a tablet or a phone, it does look slightly different when you've downloaded the app. So for those of you that are using a tablet or a phone, these are the things that you've got at the side of the worksheet to help you. So the first one is a pencil for drawing lines and ticking multiple choice boxes. The second one is a rubber for erasing mistakes from the pencil. So if you draw a line and you realise that it wasn't in the right place, you can rub it out using the rubber. The third one is the really important one. So this is the one that says ABC. And it creates a text box so that you can use the keyboard to type your answers. You should use this for most of the answers. Even in maths, it's easier for us to read if you've done a text box and typed the number 600 than if you've tried to write it in pencil. You really only should be using the pencil for underlining things and ticking multiple choice boxes. Maybe if it's a question like this one, then you might need to draw lines between something, but that's really it. You shouldn't be writing any letters or numbers with it. The last one has stickers. Would you put stickers into your English book in school? No. Are you going to put stickers on your work on Class Dojo? No. Because your work on Class Dojo is basically like the work in your school books. Yeah, we're going to keep it on Class Dojo so that we've got it throughout the whole year, so that we know what you've achieved and what you've done, and it can go towards the level that we give to your secondary school. If we can't read your work because it's full of stickers, we won't be able to give you a good level to go to your secondary school. So, remember, if you have any questions or need any help, come to the Microsoft Teams meeting at 12:30 and myself or Mr. Raystrick will speak to you. We'll be able to go through the questions with you and help you out. Now, I've put one optional task on at the end because I thought this might be quite fun and quite a few of you would like to do this. So, using the description in the poem, you can draw a picture of what you think the Jabberwock looks like. So you can do this in your English book, or you could, if you've got a plain piece of paper at home that you'd rather do it on, then you could do it in there. If you're going to do it in your English book, please make sure that you write the date and the LO from the front of this video, from the start of this video, so that we know why it's in there. Okay? It is optional, but I thought quite a few of you might like to do that. So, the final thing is I'm going to leave the poem again as the final part of the video. So if you haven't got your pack yet, you can pause it here, you can leave the video up so that you can see the poem as you are doing the answers. Because remember, it's not a memory lesson, it's a reading lesson. So you need to be reading the poem to find the answers. Good luck, come to the meeting if you get stuck, and I'm looking forward to seeing your work on Class Dojo later.